Hey guys, Glockster 42. Well, it's a balmy 6 degrees on the 5th of July in the Canadian foothills. We're out camping, and as you can see, I got a couple of my SKSs. Well, actually, the only two SKSs I have. I'm going to do a bit of a comparison here between the Chinese version and the Soviet version, Russian version. Call it Soviet because it was manufactured in '52, and this is just a plain old Chicom SKS. So we'll go through them and point out some of the differences. Other than cosmetics, you know, they're a pair of SKSs. Let's start with the Russian model. This one here, manufactured in 1952. The first thing that jumps right out at you between the Chinese version and the Russian version is the stock. The Russians are using a laminate stock, basically thick plywood, and the Chinese stock is using some type of a hardwood. I know it's not chew wood. It's much better quality than the stock that the Chinese use in their M305s that come to Canada. But that's the first thing that jumps out at you. Now, looking a little bit closer at the stocks, size-wise, they're pretty much identical. They're very, very similar. The big thing is that the Russian Soviet stock is a little bit thinner through the fore end. The Russian stock, the Chinese one's a little bit heavier, a little bit clunkier up through the middle. But other than that, right to that, pretty much the same thing. As you can see right here, the Soviet one has a cross bolt running through the back to both sides, just adding up a little bit more strength. Whereas the Chinese version, no cross bolt at the back, just up at the front here. Which the fellow I bought this from decided that he needed to put some resin in there for whatever reason. I have no idea. And of course, another steel pin up at the front here on both firearms. Now, this Russian one is an Arsenal refinish, so you can see through the years somewhere along the way this has been knocked out, broken, and repaired. Now, this is not the original top foregrip forend on this. It actually had a laminated stock, but in my youthful exuberance, a couple of years ago, I thought I'd put a Tapco stock on this, and I had a heck of a time trying to get that laminated piece out to put the Tapco top on. So it got wrecked, and after a year or so with the Tapco stock, I decided, like, you know, I'm going to turn this back into what it was, a nice mil-spec rifle. So as you can see, the Chinese model is wearing the Tapco top forend. Now, this is actually off the Russian gun. This gas vent is off the Russian gun. This gas vent is off the Chinese gun. They fit perfectly. They work identical, but I just want to keep this all wood. I'll probably order up a new laminate forend for one of these days, but right now. Now, another thing, you can see that on the Chinese one, it's got the gas port is right here, cross bolted there, sling attachment there as well. Same thing on the Russian model, just slightly different sling connections. Now, this has just a little bit slimmer gas port than the Chinese one. It's also using a pin as well. Excess gas vented out there, the same on both. And this is actually the Chinese one, the Russian one is identical. Now, they did both come with the folding bayonets right from the factory, like that, as well as the cleaning rod right here. Now, the thing with the Chinese one, what I've done is I added a AK-74 type muzzle brake that doesn't really reduce recoil all that much, but it certainly makes it a lot louder. Now, with that, of course, you have to remove the bayonet because it won't hook up. The bayonet has to come out, and the gas and the cleaning rod is also taken off just to fit that muzzle brake. You know, no big deal. It's just a Chinese SKS with something a little bit different. You can see the AK-74 muzzle brake has the two ports at the top, the side ports, and it's held in place with a cross pin. It works really well. It goes on easy. It was very simple to put on. Now, internally, these two rifles are very similar. But let's finish up. They both use the same type of safety. The Chinese one is probably a little bit easier to manipulate than the Russian one. The Russian one is just a little bit stiffer. They both use a, well, it's a 10 round magazine. Of course, neutered down to 5 rounds for Canada. Identical on both of them. Pop them open. Now, because this Russian one is an Arsenal refinish, there's a mix of painted pieces. The bolt is painted, the dust cover's painted, the receiver's painted, the barrel is hot blued. So that's one thing. Just because it's an Arsenal refinish, there's a little mix of finishes. The Chinese one is all hot blued, right from start to stern. Dust cover, the receiver, everything is all hot blued. There is no paint on this. Sights on the two rifles, virtually identical. Same markings, same manipulation, same everything. Same with the front posts are the same on the Chinese and the Russian. Now, the Chinese, of course, has a chrome bolt, whereas the SKS, the Arsenal refinish, has the painted bolts. Very similar. That's the Chinese one. This Russian one taking it down. These separate over here. That up, just a little easier to do that like that. Open that up. Now, as you can see on the Russian one, it is a mix of paint. For the most part, it's a painted bolt versus a hard chromed bolt. Other than that, they're virtually identical. Now then, do I want to see if they'll, just for shits and giggles, let's check it out. Here's the Chinese, here's the Russian bolt, here's the Chinese gun. Now, I've never done this, so I don't know if this is going to work, guys. I don't see why it wouldn't. Alright, so here's the Russian bolt and the Chinese rifle. Seems to lock right up. No point in, I'm definitely not going to go out and try and shoot them like that. But as you can see, the machining quality on them, I'd almost give it to the Chinese for the bolts. Chinese bolts look to be just maybe that much nicer, a little bit cleaner, a little bit better finish, a little bit better machining on them. Let's take a look at the interior of these. Now here's where we see that the Soviets, I see the milling on the Chinese one. Let's see if we can zoom down into that a little bit better. You can see here that the Chinese, a little rougher machining marks in along the rails in here, compared to the Russian model, is fairly nice. It's a lot smoother, a lot nicer, lot nicer finished inside. You can also see there's the hammers there. Everything else is virtually identical. The big thing for me in these two firearms is the trigger pull. Here, let me put everything back together and we'll go over that. Alrighty. We'll just cock these puppies. Yes, they're empty. Now, trigger pull. Russian trigger pull, 2-stage, as you can see. There's the take up, like that. Heavy, but it breaks fairly crisp. It's heavy, but it breaks crisp at probably about, when I did this one on my trigger, I think this was breaking at about 8 pounds. Now let's do the Chinese one. It also has the 2-stage pull, cool. But instead of being heavy and breaking crisp, this one creeps, builds up, and then goes off at about 14 pounds. I could live with the heavy trigger pull, but you get all the creep, builds up, and then goes, boom. Tough to shoot this one fast. Very difficult. Accuracy wise, well, we're going to see. We're going to take these out here in a bit, and we're going to test them with some Soviet era manufactured 7.62x39, as well as some Czech surplus 7.62x39. Let's just see which one of these is more accurate. You know, one thing I forgot to talk about was price, guys. The price on these puppies. Now, this one I bought 2 years ago, and it was $229.95 Canadian. This one I bought, the Chinese one, I would have purchased about 9 years ago when they first came out. It was $175 Canadian with the this is what I paid for it. $175 Canadian. It came with the sling, a bandolier, stripper clips, and 1,250 rounds of Chinese ammo for $175 shipped. That was a hell of a deal. I wish I'd have got a couple more. Now, like I said, I bought this one used from my neighbor. Then I found out where he was getting them from, and by the time I got to where he bought these, they were all sold out at that price with a crate of ammo. I mean, let's face it, a crate of ammo, 7.62x39 steel case milsurp ammo now costs $300. So back then, that was a hell of a deal. A rifle and a crate of ammo for $175. I wish I'd have bought. I think the Chinese 7.62x39 was $100 a case back then, or less. Might have even been $85 on sale when you could find it on sale. But those days are long since past. But anyway, that's what it is on price. You know, there's not a lot of Chinese SKSs that I've seen lately. Most of the Russian ones at about $229. The Russian ones are a very good rifle. I'd recommend them. Given the choice between the two, I'd go Russian all the time. The Chinese ones they're heavy duty. They don't break, but the Russian ones, the trigger a little bit more refined. Now, granted, you can go ahead and spend some more money and get some. I believe Wolf makes a trigger kit for these, but you know, for me, why bother? These are more of a fun gun. You know, if things go absolutely south one day, these are going to be probably my barter guns. So that's the kind of thing to think about. It's getting yourself a stock of some barter rifles for those cold, rainy days that are probably just around the corner. So anyway, let's go do some shooting.